The last video of the course is an attempt to metaphysically redeem true love with a transcendent argument for true love. This first appeared in the Philosopher's Magazine, written by me, and later appeared in my anthology, What Don't You Know? So throughout history, true love has faced various classic obstacles. These include fire-breathing dragons, feuding relatives, vile villains, high gas prices, and of course jealous rivals. Today, though, the greatest enemies of true love are science and philosophy. And this is because they present the main intellectual challenges to the concept of true love. And there are good arguments in both of these fields that point towards a denial of what we would regard as true love. So what is true love? Well, one way to define it, which can be disputed, is that true love is such that one person, say Jane, loves another, say Dick, himself, and not his qualities or possessions. Qualities and possessions, they change. A person can go from, looking amazing in a bathing suit, and thanks to gravity and time, look far less amazing. And a person can lose their possessions. They can lose their job. Also, of course, these things can be possessed by others. A person, who has a quirky smile, there may be someone else who has a same or better smile. Even qualities like, kindness and generosity, other people can have them. And true love is supposed to be such that it doesn't fade with the change of qualities of the object of true love. That someone won't, truly love someone, and then one day when the person is, put on a little weight, suddenly not true love them anymore. Or true love someone who happens to be, really wealthy, but then no longer true love them when they lose their fortune. And of course, true love is supposed to be, non-transferable. So if someone true loves somebody, they shouldn't be able to switch that true love around to someone else who has similar qualities. So what is needed is something that lies beneath all the qualities, all the possessions. Well, this is what, in metaphysics, makes the person she is, and separates her from all other beings. It's the individuator. Now, this is something that contemporary scientists and philosophers do tend to deny. So, what is the scientific view of love? Now, this is incredibly oversimplified because people have written entire books, devoted entire careers to it, but here's the super simple science of love. So, kind of the best explanation these days is that love is a brain state that is ultimately driven by genes in search of suitable genes with which to combine. This drive is aimed at empirical qualities and not a mysterious and metaphysical entity. And this is essentially as an evolutionary account, theory of evolution stuff. So what we call romantic love is an evolutionary result that has been selected for because, obviously enough, it has enabled the propagation of the species. So when one says that Dick loves Jane, that means, again, put horribly oversimplified, that the organism that is Dick is reacting to the organism that is Jane in a way that would incline Dick to mate with Jane. Whether Jane reciprocates depends on the way her brain states respond to Dick's qualities. And so what we consider to be, the classic true love is absence. It's just not there because it's simply genes, that program the brain and drive people around to seek out a suitable mate, with which to, reproduce. Natural selection. So what would we need to have true love? Well, what would be needed for true love is something metaphysical, an underlying metaphysical self, the true self. And this self would be the object of true love. There are obvious and serious problems with this approach, because true love would seem to be as much a fantasy as fire-breathing dragons and, completely honest, politicians. But people want to believe in true love. Most human beings, in fact, need to believe in the possibility of true love. People want to believe that they love other people and are loved, and that love is more than an evolutionary device for the propagation of the species. People want to be loved not because of, well, they do like if they're loved because of how they look and what they have, but deep down inside in our secret souls, we probably want to be loved not because of how good we look, not because of our money, but because of who we are. We want to be loved because we deserve love, simply by being ourselves. So how could that be? How can we make this possible? Well, the unlikely savior of true love is our good dead friend Immanuel Kant. More specifically, I'll be stealing from him. So Kant, among the many things that he's famous for, is also famous for his concept of the phenomena and the noumena. So we can argue for the foundation of true love, the true metaphysical self. Now Kant, as I just noted, split the world up into what he called the noumena and the phenomena. The phenomena are the things as they appear to us. This is what we experience. To use an obvious example, seeing how Jane looks in a bikini, or Sam looks in a bikini, or anyone looks in a bikini. Now, according to Kant, we can have empirical scientific knowledge of such things. That's the realm of science. So what about this noumena? Well, the noumena are the things in themselves. The real thing, what's really out there for real. Now, the noumena, according to Kant, cannot be known. And his reason is that they are beyond our experience. So, because they're beyond our experience, they cannot be the subject of science. They lie outside its legitimate bounds. We cannot know it. It is unknowable. So it seems that we're kind of doomed. We need this transcendent self, this metaphysical self, but if Kant's right, it would be the noumena. Can't know that, so we can't know there's such a thing, and presumably can't love such a thing. But I said that Kant was going to save us, so here I am to deliver. So one possibility is that we should just stick with the phenomena and withhold any and all speculation about the noumena. Just, do the science. But Kant, and again, he's going to save us, so here he goes. He claims we just can't help but try to extend our reason beyond the phenomena and into the realm of the noumena. We just can't help it. We're drawn to accept what he calls the transcendent illusions of metaphysics. And of course, here comes the self. So, the self, according to Kant, is a transcendent illusion. And according to me, it's crucial for true love. And this particular illusion that we need for true love is the metaphysical self. Now, like our good dead friend David Hume, our good dead friend Immanuel Kant, agrees we can have no impression of the metaphysical self. What we can have, however, are impressions through introspection, that is, looking within the mind's eye, of the empirical self. So, when you look inside your mind, a person, according to Kant, can never encounter this metaphysical self. What you would encounter, what I would encounter, what anybody would encounter, according to Kant, is various sensations, various thoughts, various feelings. Now, at this point would be where Hume was at the end of his discussion of personal identity, that all you encounter when you go looking about with the mind's eye is just all these perceptions, but nothing underlying them. But this is where Kant, expands on Hume, or can be seen as breaking with Hume. So, for Kant, this notion allows him to argue that there must be behind our experiences, that there must be something, or rather, more accurately, that we have to think of our experiences as if they occur within a unified self. Why must we do this? Well, according to Kant, this provides a frame of reference for our thought, and in kind of a pragmatic argument, he says that it's useful to accept the metaphysical self. So essentially there seem to be two grounds for accepting the self, the metaphysical self, according to Kant. The first is that it's useful. Again, kind of a pragmatic argument. And second, we need the metaphysical self. We want it. So those would be his two main reasons. It's useful and we need it. Now there is, as you'd imagine, considerable debate whether we should treat this metaphysical self as a useful fiction that's just kind of helpful, or accept it as existing based on the Kantian transcendent argument. And those are two rather different things, because it's one thing to say this is a useful fiction, that we make it up, but it's useful to have this story. It's quite another to say, yes, we should accept that it actually exists. Now, as I've sort of stated, we can use Kant's argument to argue for true love, specifically by arguing for the existence, or at least a special reason to believe, in the true self of true love. And what would be this true self of true love? Well, it would be the self that is loved for what it truly is, and loves others for what they truly are, the metaphysical self, the self of love. So how do we do this? Well, Kant argues famously for God, freedom, and immortality, and we can steal this argument and repurpose it. So when Kant argues for, God, freedom, and immortality, he actually contends you can't prove that any of these. You can't prove that God exists, because he claims there's only three ways to argue for God. They all fail. That's all there are, so you can't prove God. But you also can't disprove God. He claims, according to science, you can't prove there's freedom. In fact, science seems to show that there's not. And in the case of immortality, you can't prove immortality. And hence, according to Kant, you can't prove any of these things, and you can't know that God exists or doesn't exist. You can't know that we're free or not free. You can't know if we're immortal or not immortal. But he claims that God, freedom, and immortality are irresistible to us because, he argues, they are necessary conditions for morality. He claims you can't have morality without God, freedom, and immortality. So if we want morality, and we can't have morality without these three, we've got to have them. So in the case of God, he doesn't say that God makes things good or bad. Rather, for him, God is critical because we intuitively believe that badness must be punished, goodness must be rewarded. But we don't see that here. So for morality to work, there must be a God that ensures that the books are balanced. So that's our reason for accepting God, according to Kant, at least in the case of ethics. In the case of freedom, if we weren't free, it wouldn't make any sense to say that our actions were good or bad. If a tree gets hit by lightning and falls on your car, we don't say the tree is evil because it has no choice. If someone chainsaws a tree and intentionally drops it on your car, then we'd say they're bad because they're acting from choice. In the case of immortality, he gives kind of an odd argument. Kant claims that we're morally obligated to achieve moral perfection. But of course, this would take forever. And morality can't require the impossible, so in kind of an odd argument, according to Kant, we have to be immortal, because we need to take forever to achieve moral perfection. So, kind of odd, but that's what he ends up claiming. So we could apply the same method to true love. So, as I've argued, it would seem that true love would be impossible without a metaphysical self to be loved. it is a necessary condition for true love. And of course, as we've seen, the metaphysical self is beyond the realm of scientific proof. So why do we need to have the self? Well, the reason is, of course, that true love is irresistible because it is a critical belief for our happiness and for our conception of ourselves. In order to be happy, I would argue, we've got to believe that true love is possible. We also have to believe that we are worthy of love, not just because of how good we look in a swimsuit or what we own, but simply because we are ourselves. So true love compels us to accept the existence of the metaphysical self. So, thanks to our good dead friend Immanuel Kant, the world is now a safer place for true love. And this brings us to the end of metaphysics. So as always, stay safe, and I'll see you in the future.